Can't stop the train, baby. Woo!
Guys, we got a little bit of a surprise for you. I know last week we had said we are not going to have an episode this week, and well, while this wouldn't be considered a full Losers Bracket episode, we do have a very special interview. His real name is Adam, but everyone in the community would know him as MLG Clap. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Now, I've got to ask, how did you get your position with MLG? And for those that don't know that are listening into the show, could you possibly brief everybody on what you do with the company?
Sure. It's kind of a long story if you don't mind. Let's see, I'd graduated back in 2003 from my undergrad. I was taking a year off to go to law school, so I decided to take some time to really, nail the LSATs, build up my resume a little bit. I took a job with a congressman here in Ohio, and I was really on the campaign side. Learned a lot, in terms of grassroots outreach and that type of thing on that job. But while I was working there, I was working 70 to 90 hours a week, 7 days a week. And it was a Republican candidate, but I am pretty much not a party guy. I am a issue voter. So, like I said, I was working a lot of hours, and I didn't really have time to hang out traditionally like I did in school. I started playing Halo 1 with a lot of my local friends. John Kern, who's on UGH show now. Some of my other cousins, local, I think some of them used to be on the forums, aren't necessarily there anymore, like a Halo Bob, and some of my friends, local friends, and we really liked Halo 1. We thought it was that was a great game, and we were playing in I was living with my mother at the time. We were playing Halo 1 every day after I get off work late. These guys were 4 or 5 years younger than me, so they didn't really have as many life responsibilities at the time. So they would come down and we'd just lay in all night. And in an attempt to find more people to play with locally, I decided to rent out a ballroom locally. So I went to a hotel. Out of my pocket, I rented a ballroom. I borrowed TVs and Xboxes, had one of my friends make a website, and we just kind of hoped for the best. And I found out that these guys named the Ogres lived an hour and a half from me. So I, somehow found out their contact, got a hold of them on AIM, told them I'd give them, $5 for every person they got to come to my tournament. They went out and started preaching the good word for us, and we showed up at our event at this ballroom, set it up with probably the worst floor plan ever known to a Halo tournament, and we had 100 people, 200 people show up, and it was like a 14-year-old Gandhi, a 12-year-old Xena, 18-year-old Triple X. People came from all over the country, and we ran a tournament where a 16-year-old Chris Puckett, too, mind you, that's where I met him. And
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a who's list of the early MLG community. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we ended up paying for the ballroom. We paid for all the costs we incurred, and we gave out a couple grand in prize money. And it was a really successful event, and it was a lot of work, and that was it for me. I didn't want to do it again, and I thought it was fun, but that was it. Sundance and Sepso had heard about it through Xena, who they had run their first event that was kind of a disaster. Her brother JMB and Xena, they told them that they should reach out to me to help with their next one. So somehow linked up with those guys. They asked me to come to New York for an interview. I went to New York and on a train and met with them, and they offered me a job basically matching what I was making in politics. So I took it, and with the understanding I was still going to go to law school and everything. So that's how I started working with MLG, and we ran Halo Nationals in Philadelphia. It was the biggest tournament at the time. We beat our competitor then, AGP, in terms of attendance. We set a record. I think it was like 76 or 80 teams for Halo 1. A couple months later, these guys offered me a job, and I was kind of making a decision whether to go to law school or not, and I took vice president of league operations and put law school on the back burner, and that's kind of how I ended up here.
Awesome. So you have literally, in many ways, been at Major League Gaming since day one.
Yes, November 2003 or October, I entered as a contractor. I was Sonny and Sepso, then me.
and tell everyone how your position evolved. So you started out coming in league operations, and now the hard work, so to speak, begins. Tell me about those early days.
So, like I said, I wasn't a hardcore gamer. I played Halo 1 for fun, and I knew right away that I had to assemble a team around me that knew what they were doing, and just use my management skills that, I was young, but I've had some leadership qualities that have gotten me through life. So I knew that I had to surround myself with great people. So day one, I reached out to somebody that ran a great event from, reaching out to guys like the Ogres and to Chris Puckett, these guys that, knew what they wanted. They were the top players at the time. So I leaned on them. I said, what was the best event you've been to? And they said 50K. 50K was the best tournament. So there's a guy named Anakin, there's a guy named Dolbex at the time that ran these events. So immediately, day one of my job, I reached out to both of them, and what's it going to take for you guys to work with us? Anakin's now our commissioner. Dolbex was kind of our web guy back in the day, and he was amazing. He moved on to different endeavors in his own business, but without those guys back then, we wouldn't have been where we're at now. But I always knew I needed to surround myself with the people that actually knew what they were doing, and kind of put a framework around them, and use my, like I had mentioned earlier, the grassroots campaign side of things, getting the community to love us. This is something we used to be really great at, and that was our main emphasis back in the day, putting on great tournaments that gamers wanted to have, and really just listening to the community. And we used to be really awesome at it, and I think we're still pretty good at it, but we all got so busy, I think we strayed away from it, and that's something we're trying to recapture for 2011. I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
All right. Well, I have one question for you, and that is about your role in the community. And the community really sees you as the bad cop, so to speak. And
Sure.
I kind of really wanted to know, how this came about. Your thoughts on that?
Sure. Well, my current title is Senior Vice President of League Operations and Production. So on a day-to-day basis, I am not only overseeing the current event calendar, I'm booking next year's in addition. So I'm negotiating venue contracts. I am in charge of T&E, which means getting every single one of our staff to events. Through proxy, John Nelson, Anakin, is still under me. He's the commissioner. So on a high level, I still oversee the league, the rules, regulations. I don't really micromanage that very much because I trust John implicitly, but there's a lot on my plate. And one of the things on my plate is community management. Dan DiAugustino is also under me. Dan does a lot of stuff with our outreach. It's kind of like the walking, living, breathing FAQ for MLG. He's out on every forum. You'll see him answering questions. He knows everything that we do in and out. And there comes a point when on the forums that our moderators get a little overwhelmed. They're at a point when they're in a battle that they just really can't win. The forums can be nasty. I mean, you guys know it probably on your own sites. These guys, they're anonymous, they're on a keyboard, and they can say whatever they want. And our guys need to have an air of professionalism at all times. It's almost like bringing a knife to a gunfight. And our guys the only time that I'll ever post on a thread is when it's kind of like worst case scenario. I have a bad reputation of being bad cop, I guess, to use your own words, but it's almost the closer, I would say. It's like when the conversation's got to a point where it needs to end, or it's beyond a point of reason where it's just bashing the company or bashing our employees or saying Casey doesn't do a good job making game types, in more flavorful words. That's when I have to step in and just say, hey, this isn't the conversation that should be going on this forum. This isn't productive. And of course I'll have different language than what I'm saying right now, but it gets to a point where the conversation isn't going to do anything positive, and someone needs to step in, and that person through the years has always been me. It's better than having Sundance do it, so I would always like to be that guy. So if I have a bad reputation for it, so be it. I'm sure I could react better in some situations, but at the end of the day, I think by ending the conversation at hand, it actually does more good than harm.
Well, I'm sympathetic to what it is to be misunderstood. I've watched some of those threads where people get upset, and often your staff has expressed as much as they can, and they've made their point, and then sometimes you're dealing with, some things borderline on sort of the conspiracy theory kind of situation, and others, throughout what I call the common man's cry of, all you care about the money, and at the end of the day, you do have a lot of delicate things to balance, and that's understandable. But at the same time, I think to Ryan's question about playing the bad cop, a lot of, I think, the community sees that heavy-handed approach as something that it does feel disconnected. And maybe I should position it like this. When Bromberg was still at Major League Gaming, and I was really around in '07 in probably the largest capacity, although I looked at the league pretty closely in '06, and that's my first introduction to Major League Gaming. That was there that I saw, I would say at least the disconnect was going on at the time that I had arrived. And I think you became this front point person that, to me at least, as a community member, you represented that culture because it was the kind of thing that I thought under Bromberg's leadership felt like MLG's position toward everyone else.
I can definitely say that pretty much not true. And that's not in a negative reaction to that. I work for Major League Gaming, but I work for Mike and Sonny. I'm really, those are my guys, and I do this. I love what I do. Don't get me wrong. I love this company, but I really go to bat for those guys, and I would do anything for them. And I would never want to be lumped in with a negative culture or negative, too corporate of a feel for the company. I've kind of bleed for this company a little bit, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, or I don't know what the proper term would be, but sometimes I go in and I post with my heart a little bit, or I post without thinking about it properly. I should, sometimes take a step back, take a breather, but we have, such a small company, and I know how hard these guys work. I see them every day, busting their butt, and I'm on the emails. I'm sending out 150 emails a day, and it's reciprocal across the company. I mean, all the projects we're working on and everything, all the stuff we're doing, and it's just sometimes it takes somebody else to fight for these guys, and it's I've always taken that role of being kind of the champion of some of these guys that don't have the means to fight back or aren't allowed to fight back, and I've taken the negative ire on me. I would hope that it's not associated with a regime that I personally didn't agree with either. So I hope that kind of clears that up, because my take on it is take the negative on me and kind of take it off other people's plate that don't necessarily deserve it, if that makes sense.
I don't want to label you, but a loyalist maybe to a fault, and you wear that passion on your sleeve. But I mean, I think from a professional perspective, having someone in the organization who is emotionally invested in the executive team, who cares about the work and the effort that they put in, I'm quite certain that both Sonny and Mike probably deeply appreciate what you do, because I know when in my conversations with Sundance, I have said, what's the story here? And he said, I think you really need to meet him. And I mean, he was the one who obviously encouraged us to start talking, and I really appreciate you did reach out to us now that you're on the show. Let's talk a little bit about your role as the sort of head of league operations, specifically at events.
Sure. My question to you, Clap, is just what are your day in and day out operations at like an MLG event? I always see you running around, taking care of, certain, I guess, riots you could call it at the event, like the Dallas main stage that was happening for the Halo 3 finals. I just want to see what you do at the events from when it opens on Friday to when it closes on Sunday.
So at the event itself, I usually arrive Tuesday, either morning or mid-afternoon, and within an hour of being on the property and checking in my room, I'm usually meeting with the hotel or venue executives or main contacts, walking through, making sure our side rooms are all square, making sure that our menu or catering and various sponsor needs are all, contractually we're all on point, and we're walking the floor and making sure Dave Elliott, who's a great guy, he's usually behind the scenes, but he's the older gentleman with the gray beard that's running our production. He's a great guy, and I'm making sure that him and his team has everything they need in anticipation of Wednesday when, we unload 3 to 4 52-foot trailers. So Wednesday morning rolls around, and I oversee loadout with Dave and spill the trucks, mapping up with a floor plan that we have mapped out. And we just do setup all day, and that happens basically Wednesday and Thursday, and I'm there overseeing it. I'm meeting with the house, I'm meeting with our internal guys, making sure everything's built according to plan. When the event starts on Friday morning's pretty hectic. We're running around doing all the last touches on everything. And between 10 and 10:30, we are going to start processing, around 3,000 to 4,000 spectators that day. We're going to be processing 2,000 competitors. And I'm in charge of making sure the ticketing logistics are in place. So we have local ticketing people we hire. We're also leveraging some of our refs that will help operate ticketing during the initial event hours. It's a big process at the beginning. And so we need to process all those people. And by 1:30 at doors, we need to have 75-90% of the people that are going to be attending the event that day processed and ready to check in, and ready to enter the doors at 1:30, because these guys all need to warm up. Spectators want to be in there, and on top of that, I also manage security. So we have 50 guards that we need to have in certain places around the floor, make sure our millions of dollars of equipment isn't being stolen or damaged. We have sponsor booths that also need to be secured. We have a big merch booth. There's a lot going on the floor. And top of all that, we have the main stage where obviously we're producing a live television show. So there's a million things that I'm just literally running around in a circle the whole time, making sure each respective tournament admin has everything they need. Whether we need to do a cash walk for merch, or security has a problem, or there's a problem at ticketing. I'm literally walking around the venue the entire time, just putting out little small fires. So that's basically what I do at events.
Now, Adam, looking at the sort of, 50-plus events you have been with Major League Gaming, I'd like you to share a little bit of history with our audience and tell them, if you could, probably maybe the biggest challenge, the most difficult moment you may have had an event, maybe a memorable, wow, that was a really bad moment.
Let's see. Well, not being specific, but, 2004, 2003, 2005, we didn't have a production crew. We didn't have union workers. We didn't have stagehands. It was basically me for the first year and a half, and then John Kern coming on, that unloaded trucks, set up TVs, set up Xboxes, taped down wires, set up every single thing in the room for 2 years, just the two of us. If Anakin was out of college at the time, because, these guys are all pretty young when we hired him, he would be there to help on Thursday for load-in, or Puckett if he was out of high school. As funny as that sounds, he would be there to help. But the majority of the time, it was just us loading stuff in, and we'd have the 6-plug extension cord thing you see at Walmart that you buy. We'd have those daisy chained to the venue for power, and it's just, you look back and you're like, God, how did we not have a fire? How did we make it through all these days, all these events? But I'd probably say the biggest crazy moment, just in terms of the gravity of the time, was finally got Bungie to come out to an event for us, and it was in 2004 at the end of the season, and we were in Seattle, and they came out and they were going to demo Halo 2 live for us. It was a gigantic deal for us. It was a huge, move in the right direction, getting on board with the publishers, having them recognize that we were important. They showed up and they're like, you guys, we need 16 port routers to run this. We're going to be, we don't have any of the equipment that you guys need. We were running Halo 1 at the time, so that equipment didn't exist in our event inventory. So I just remember running down the streets of Seattle, literally at a Olympic sprint pace, with Dolbex, who's a smoker and not an athletic guy, running down the streets of Seattle and running into a Radio Shack, trying to buy Ethernet cords and routers, and they didn't have everything we needed. And running down the street to another store, and Sketch Factor and those guys and Frankie were all waiting back at the venue for us, and they're sweating because we have this crowd of people waiting for this event, and we come running back in with this bundles of stuff and just unpackaging it in the venue, setting up this thing live. And, it goes out over VOD, which was kind of archaic at the time in terms of what we do now, but we had this big audience at home, and, respected to our size then, waiting to watch Halo 2. And not only that, but a live event audience waiting, and Bungie waiting for us to get our shit together. And it was pretty stressful. It was pretty crazy. But we ended up getting it together, and Halo 2 ended up running.
With that being said, what was your best moment? Of these last 50 events, what would you say that was our best moment? We nailed it, or that was awesome.
I would say going out of Halo 2 into Halo 3 when, we had our Chicago tournament, when Little Poise almost won the FFA, and we pulled almost 250 teams or something crazy at the time. That was a great moment, and it kind of gave us validation that this thing can be, there are people out there that want to play this. We just need to get our stuff together on our end to let them know we're out there. But I'd say a recent feeling for me was the Raleigh event, the 50th event. And why it was important for me was we had announced that we were doing the Halo Reach transfer, or the changeover. And, the reception on it was varied. Some people loved it. Some people thought we were, killing Halo 3 prematurely. But at the end of the day, we knew it was going to hurt Raleigh. We knew it was going to hurt attendance. And we went out, and I made a post on the off-topic forums. I just asked for feedback. I just said, what can we do to get you guys out here? And there was just a list of stuff, from the community. And we implemented a lot of it. We put amateurs on the main stage. We added Halo 1 and Halo 2 free play. Stuff, kind of the things that we used to do back in the day. We would genuinely listen to the community. We'd implement what they said, and it really moved the needle. I mean, Raleigh went from being a complete and utter disaster to being like on par with Columbus or Washington D.C. or anything else, and really fitting the bill for the 50th event. I thought that was a really powerful moment. It was like kind of reaffirms the fact that how important a community is, and it couldn't have happened at a better time than the 50th event. So, I mean, that for me was just showed the power of like. When we are mobilizing internally and we listen to the community and ask them what they want and we all kind of move together, I thought it was a really awesome moment. It was kind of like full circle for me.
Well, I'll tell you, it was, we on the show, we were very concerned also. We had covered in particular with the way you were setting it up, motivation for the players. And then when we attended Raleigh, I have to say Raleigh was probably one of my favorite MLG stops. I really hope we're going to see it next year.
I think you'll be happy then.
That's what Sundance has hinted at, so I'm glad to hear that.
Raleigh's a great city for us, and the city of Raleigh really wants to work with us, so we're going to definitely listen to them. So that's really,
that.
Yeah, Raleigh's I love Raleigh, and the area around the venue was amazing. I thought it was great for kids. There's lots of restaurants and things to do, and hopefully we'll be seeing that next year.
That'll be good. I live here, so come back. But I do have a question, actually two. What would be your favorite city that MLG has gone to so far, and name a city that you wish MLG goes to in the future?
Let's see. Favorite city. Is it favorite city for personal reasons or like favorite city for event reasons?
Personal reasons is fine.
Being from Ohio, I never thought I would, being from a very depressed area of Ohio, where the, coal and steel mines used to be prominent, and now they're just gone. I thought I would go to law school and live here forever, and I would never really travel outside of this area very much. And through this job, I've traveled all over the country, and I thought Seattle was amazing. I thought it was incredibly inspiring to see the landscape, and just the whole area just kind of like makes you feel good. Felt the same about San Francisco and San Diego. Not to have a West Coast bias, but all three of those cities I think were pretty moving for me. What city would I like to go to? We get a lot of clamor for like, why aren't you coming to Arizona? Why can't you come to Phoenix? And why can't you run an event down here? And no one more than the people at MLG would love to go to Arizona, but unfortunately the gaming laws there make us out to be some type of lottery gambling outfit that we're not allowed legally to run there. I would love to be in Arizona. I would love to be in also New Orleans eventually, maybe a year from now or 2 years from now. Let the area catch up a little bit again. But I'd love to be in Phoenix, or Arizona in general, and New Orleans.
Well, since we're talking about locations, will you ever actually come to Chicago?
You mean downtown? Or
well,
just
the city. I mean, you were in St. Charles. That's like that doesn't even count as Chicago. I mean, that's
we were in downtown Chicago in 2005. Jerry, one of the big problems with our events is that cities that are very union heavy, like for example. Certain cities, Chicago or Philadelphia, which is one of my favorite towns, one of the towns we've had most success in, Halo Nationals tradition. But a lot of these towns that have these strict unions will make us have literally a 1-to-1 ratio for staff. So if there's a ref on the floor, there needs to be a union guy with him for every one of the refs. If there's somebody switching our video, there needs to be a union guy standing there, even if he's not doing that job. And it exponentially increases cost. So that's a big hindrance for us to coming to certain venues or cities. Certain cities, it's literally citywide. Chicago's like that. Philadelphia's like that. Certain venues are like that. So like a specific venue that's like that would be like a Javits in New York City. That's why you saw us at the Meadowlands for so long. We would love to have been in downtown New York City, but unions can be prohibitive and it makes it exponentially cost intensive. So that's why you don't see us in certain markets. We'd love to do it, but until the CVBs meaning Convention and Visitors Bureaus, start working on us and making it a little easier on us to come there, it's kind of a pipe dream for us right now.
Well, I think Columbus is an excellent city. I've been there year after year for a convention called Origins run by Gamma, and another big convention-friendly city is Indianapolis. Have you guys ever considered Indianapolis?
We have, and it's too close to Columbus, so it's going to be like duel to the death to see which one makes it on the event calendar. But we're definitely always looking at new markets.
All right, I want to turn a little bit away from events now and get to sort of the future, 2011. I've had the privilege to talk to Sundance, about once a month, and we talk about different things. Would you be willing to share a little bit of maybe some topic that you could leak a little about what we can expect in 2011?
Sure. I mean, a lot of the stuff Sundance is telling you is basically conversations me and Sundance are having, so I can maybe shed a little bit of light on some of the things we're thinking for next year, and let's see where to begin.
Well, why don't we start with a little rumor about local land centers?
Sure. One of the big challenges we have is that our events cost a lot of money. If anybody's ever been to one of our events, you can tell that, they're not cheap to run. What that creates is a problem where we don't have enough activity between events during the off season. People are not crying, but, there's a lot of people, clamoring for like a amateur circuit, or they want us just to run more events. And we would love to. I would love to run 80 events a year. But we just, in terms of a business model, we can't sustain ourselves. So one of the things that we've been brewing up internally is for 2011, working with 10 to 100. We're in the process of, and these land centers don't really know we're doing it right now, but we're in the process of reaching out to every land center in the country to see what equipment they have in-house. And we have a kind of a minimum spec requirement, but we want to reach out and find some official MLG land center partners. The minimum would be to be able to run one of our titles that we'll have for next year. We're hoping to be on, all four of the platforms, whether that's Xbox 360, PC, PS3, and Wii. Not all four of those will make it on for sure, but that's our goal. A land center needs to be able to run an event on one of those platforms, at least one. If they can run it on all four, that's even better. The goal is to have an MLG partner land center nationwide where we can run events. They can act as hubs for us around the country where, people can go and they can earn rank points possibly. Maybe there's a different bucket of rank points that's different from online tournaments or live events. But one of the big challenges we have is people are like, why does the tournament start so late on Friday? The doors close, the registration closes at 4. The the first round's not till 5 or 6 o'clock sometimes. Well, it's challenging when 90% of the bracket is unseeded people that don't have a rank point. And we're literally randomly seeding those guys in addition to people that might have rank points. So if we had regional buckets around the country where they come in with land center points, and we're doing like current national tournaments where on the third Saturday of every month, 60 land centers nationwide are running an MLG tournament with the same settings, where you can earn rank points. That's a great boon for us, and I think it's great for land centers. I think it's great for the community. These guys will come to the events where they'll have some points. They'll have their feet tested in the water on a land setting, and that's kind of a goal for us for next year to kind of increase our footprint and increase the activity that is available to the players for next year.
Well, as I told Sundance about this, I think it's a great idea because, one, it gets your brand in a lot of places. It gets MLG at the local level to communities that, may have never really thought much about a Major League Gaming event. Here they can go to their local LAN center. Ideally, I imagine staff at the LAN center trained in MLG settings and getting a lot of the event knowledge capital that you guys have, which will be good for the LAN centers to up the quality and the level of the competition for those who kind of sign on board. And then at the second level, as you said, to help you guys out also, making it easier to seed at events. And thinking about that, I noticed you mentioned a 4-platform goal. Because our players play in so many different places, let's take Brawl as an example. There are probably, we could both agree, inherent challenges to Brawl being a pro circuit title next year.
Yep.
But there definitely could be opportunities for the local Brawl scene to be affiliated with Major League Gaming as an example where the Wii could be affected. Does that sound correct?
Yes.
And outside of local LAN centers, there are local events. For fighting, I'll use Devastation. I believe that's a little bit more friendly, from my opinion, than maybe Evo, but those are two examples. In Brawl, there's, Apex and Pound. Would it be strictly LAN centers? Is it possible to include other events, or has that not even been discussed yet?
That's a different animal. It's kind of funny you brought that up. On the LAN center front, we want to create the idea of you go to an event and you're affiliated with a boxing gym type, for example, like that type of feel, like I'm at a Gold's Gym in Philadelphia or whatever. We want to be able to track points and performance for each respective LAN center and rank them against each other. We also want to be able to rank in terms of region, like maybe separate the country into 4 quadrants and compare the compare the Northeast versus the South, East, and so on and so forth. We want to be able to track all that stuff. That's a big goal for us for next year, to be able to, not only figure out who's the best in your region, but figure out which LAN center's the best, who has the best competition.
Well, it's like who's running the best gym, right? The gym that puts out the most champions. The gym that, absolutely, Adam. We've done that in the virtual sense in VV Gaming for a long time, run a virtual location where we've developed players, we've brought top players together, done our best to educate them, a little bit on the business side. And obviously now being able to match that with certain LAN centers, I would say opens all kinds of possibilities. And for the savvy business person, probably a lot of opportunities as well. Right.
And going back to your original question, the local events, we are, throwing around the idea of there's games out there that have a great following, but they might not necessarily have a following that would attend an event, a national tour, pay for a flight, pay for a hotel for 6 events across the country. I mean, that's a lot to ask, and you need to have a gigantic player pool to support that. I mean, a Halo Reach, so a Halo Reach with 10 million people playing every night, kind of satisfies that. A Call of Duty satisfies that. A StarCraft satisfies that. But there's games out there that are amazing that, we want to have affiliated with a circuit that might be great for one event. It might be great in terms of a region. So if we went to the West Coast, we did Tekken on a one-off. Just speaking off the cuff. I mean,
sure, absolutely. Not saying that it's better than East Coast or anything like that. But
right.
You're right. Some of the fighting games have a good East Coast, West Coast rivalry. At a local LAN center, you might also be able to do things, sports at a local level might be popular as an example.
So if the pro circuit was going to have 3 to 4 pro circuit titles that run for every event, and then at every event we were going to have a rotating regional title, it was almost deemed like the must attend for that respective community. That's something we're talking about. I mean, we're not totally down the road or sold on it, but we definitely know that there's communities out there that deserve attention on a MLG level, but don't necessarily have the amount of people that would be able to travel to every one of our events. So doing one-off regional events where you do, you do Smash, Melee, and Brawl in the Midwest, and then you do Tekken and whatever we have the rates for, since we can't run Street Fighter on the West Coast, and you run Madden on the East Coast. I mean, that type of thing where we run these games one-offs and have, ample prize money, and every single top player from that respective community comes to that event. That's something we're pretty interested in, and we're still exploring that theory. So that's one thing that in terms of your local, how do we support local events? Maybe using the local scene, like the Pound for Smash and the Apex for Smash, those type of events, using the seedings from the results from those to seed our one-off event. That's an example of, I think, that would answer your question.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing with that. I'm sure a lot of people are going to start looking up their own local LAN centers and start to, because I do think you actually had a thread asking on the MLG forums themselves about asking the community to supply their local LAN centers. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody has a local LAN center or a game that, has a great following, we're looking at League of Legends, we're looking at Halo 1, we're looking at Halo 2, we're looking at Tekken, we're looking at Smash, Brawl, and Melee. And not saying either of those games not saying Brawl won't be on a tour, we're not sure, but any game that you guys think would have a great following, send it to Damos, Dan DiAugustino, on our forums. Damos is his username. But if you have a LAN center that's incredible, it's just like you go there and you have no complaints and you would want it to be affiliated with the MLG brand, send it to Damos and we'll take a look at it for sure, because we're in a process of figuring out what we want to do from a grassroots perspective. We want to make it big, so we are going to be definitely pulling out the stops. And Jerry, like I said earlier, one of the things we used to do really well was we had a direct conduit to the hardcore community. We knew what they wanted, we listened to them, and I don't think it's necessarily a regime change that spurred us getting back into that, but it's more like we got so busy with so few employees that it was like one of those things that kind of got, pushed to the side, or like the secondary job for everybody. And we've recognized that we can't make it secondary. Like, listening to the community, pushing for what they want, and making it happen is definitely a number one priority for everybody here. So that's where we're moving for 2011.
I'm sure that's music to everybody's ears. I mean, I know when I came onto the scene, and I've always thrown stones. I'm a firm fan that, being a critic is in many ways your best friend to those of us, that have enough maturity to know that somebody who takes the time out to make constructive criticism and point things out. At that time, between Paul at FBI and Vinny at Mob, I was not coming into a good crowd. I don't expect you to comment on them, but I always come into this as a business person going, wow, what a way to mirror, the entire passion of the millennial generation. I get parents who come to me and say, my son watches MLG, he's talked about VV gaming, and they become, they literally always tell us, develop our child, or my child doesn't play football, he doesn't play basketball, but he loves gaming. And I know
Right.
You guys get the same thing. And I'd always come on with that approach, and obviously because of, I guess, other communities or organizations that had a previous relationship with Major League Gaming, I think I came around at a time, and then everyone at MLG, it felt like to me, sort of said, oh, he's just like the rest of them. So I just sort of consistently threw stones, figuring eventually somebody was going to pay attention and say, well, maybe he's not.
Right. We had tried to work with organizations like yours in the past, and it was more like the direction that they wanted us to do was more like a WWE, like scripted, your personality would walk out like as, Vince McMahon type thing. And, it's like we never wanted to have something that wasn't authentic. We wanted to have a competition that was viewed for its merits and for its, the skill that was showcased by the players and the magnitude of the event. And we never wanted it to be fake or contrived. A lot of the people that were trying to do what you're doing now, that's the route they wanted to go. And when you came along, it was probably like another one of those guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it felt that way. And I think that was an accurate description of some of those that I had met who also specifically used that WWE model. And I thought, the kind of passion that young people were putting into video gaming was equivalent to any professional sports. And, even though it's technology mediated, the speed, the reaction time, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but obviously that could only gain legitimacy if it was treated like the way Major League Gaming treats it. I mean, I think anything else, it would become, and I mean this respectfully, it would become like the hula hoop. It would be a fad.
Right. And, furthermore, you know as well as I do that the demo that's involved in a brand like MLG, they have the keenest sense of something that's not authentic or that is fake, or they're cynical, and that's a great quality because they smell out what they want. And if you're doing something that's that's just it's something somebody's putting together because they think that's what they want, it's not like authentic, it's not real. They'll smell it out instantly and they'll crucify you for it. So we've always tried to stick to like our guns in terms of these guys are these guys are the best consumers out there, and we need to make sure that our product is on point for them, or else they're not going to want anything to do with it.
Absolutely. In my day job, I often, when I'm helping like chief learning officers talk about educating millennials, one of the things I say over and over again is they have been so marketed to in their life that their natural instinct is to judge your authenticity. And if you're not authentic, they're going to indicate it, and it's over.
Yep.
I wrote an article recently where I spoke a lot of, the skill-based gaming sites out there. I don't know if you're aware of them, the kind where you go on and it's to put your money where your mouth are, put $10 into an account, and I'll play you. I don't know if you're familiar with any of them.
No, I don't have too much experience with that, actually.
Yeah, they're out there. Talk to Sundance about it, but What they basically do is they sort of like talk about being all about the competition, and to me, it's just like gambling. It kind of like is nothing but gambling. Let's say you and I wanted to play in Madden. We'd go onto this site, we'd put in $10 in an account, we'd play the game, report it, and then whoever wins the money. If that makes sense.
So it is just like a bet.
Yeah, it is. They don't call it that. They actually skirt the gambling law because the gambling law allows for skill-based gaming, right? So it to take away pure gambling from say poker. What allows poker to be poker is that it's skill-based. It's not luck-based.
Right.
Right. So that's how poker gets to be where poker is and not be labeled true gambling. Even though, before it sort of exploded, most everyone would have assumed poker would have been gambling, but by the law, it sort of got that caveat. And then a few business people sort of started thinking, well, video games aren't based on luck, and they sort of slipped under that radar screen. And every time I hear it, I always think to myself, this has to go away. This is not good. Because the first time little Johnny, charges his mom's credit card on a $500 bet, what that's going to mean, right? That's game over right there.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's not going to go over very well.
Yeah. So, talking about the future, 2011, to be honest, that sounds like a really ambitious plan to have to reach out, screen LAN centers. How has it been going so far?
Well, we just started, and the way I see it is we do what we do now with zero marketing, with zero. I mean, we do have an outreach plan that we implement that's location specific. So it's we're going to Raleigh, so 8 weeks out we have X, Y, and Z in terms of that we're going to do. In terms of 8 weeks out we're doing this, 7 weeks out we're doing this, and there's a lot of local outreach we do. But we've never really tried, and we've all been word of the mouth. We've all been relying on our community to just come out and support us. And this is going to be the first year that we really kind of put our oomph behind getting something there. And we are just now kind of gathering the facts and putting together a tournament kit that we would like to send to these LAN centers. We're putting together a marketing kit that we'd like to send to these LAN centers. We haven't reached out to anybody officially yet, but we're basically want it to be kind of add in a little bit of work on their end, and it's we send them people. I don't see how it wouldn't be beneficial for them. It's something that 10 years ago we probably would have charged for, but now it's kind of we just want to build the community up, and we don't want to make a buck off of it. We want to make we want to obviously make it back through people just being associated with a brand, but I think by building up the community, that by giving back, that it's just going to reap benefit for everybody involved, whether it's the game, the teams, whether it's the LAN centers, whether it's MLG, whether it's organizations like your own, just getting more people involved, creating a grassroots infrastructure, a stronger one than it is in place now, because there is nothing. There is no national network. Getting something in place is just going to pay dividends for everybody, and that's our goal, and we're kind of at step one right now, so we're learning as we go.
I think you guys, to be honest, have good partners. One that comes to mind is Blizzard. Anybody who's had the opportunity to work with Blizzard professionally, one thing I like about them is they don't let their partners fail. They seem to be very good at that.
Right.
And I think that any LAN center who's intelligent will see you as the Blizzard of competition. I think it would be great for them. I mean, anybody, and I think you've said it already, but anybody listening, if you do have a local LAN center, go out there, reach out, go to the MLG forums. There's a thread out there. Talk to them. We'll have a thread in our forums too, asking people about LAN centers that you guys can take a look at too. And then we can probably get somebody to copy that and send it to you guys. And if you're missing anyone, but we'll definitely have a link to it in our forum so people can go directly there with you guys.
Yeah, definitely. And we're gonna be having something up on our website once we get all our ducks in a row. We want to make sure we release this with everything in line with what we want, and make sure it's it's on point for everybody. It'll be all over our website with how to apply. But in the meantime, like Jerry, like you said, just if you guys have something that locally that's great, let us know. We really want to nail this, and it's heartbreaking because all these numbers we call, these places are out of business or the number's disconnected, or so I know it's not a thriving business right now. Some of these places really kick butt, and it's it's by virtue of just not only being in a great market, but by having your stuff together. And I think we could really, really, really help these guys drive people to their places. Not only drive awareness that there actually even exists, but just give people a reason to get out of their house and go to these places. And I think it'll be a reciprocal relationship for everybody involved.
I think you're right, Adam. I think one thing I learned when you guys picked up Brawl back onto the circuit, the Smash community coming back, when we started interacting with the community, I really wanted to know what made them different from a lot of other communities. And it was there that it dawned on me that the fact that they're always attending local LANs mean that they're always interacting. And the sense of community and camaraderie and the way they treat one another, I thought was a marked improvement over what I saw in Halo and in Gears. I think we will all benefit from getting players in the same room with each other out there. There could be a large potential for things to change. So I think it's a really positive idea that from talking to Sundance to now, thank you for sharing the specifics with everybody. I think a lot of people are going to be very excited to hear this. Which brings me to the final part of our interview here, Adam, before we let you go. Good cop, bad cop in the future. Is Adam going to lighten up a little bit?
Hopefully Adam will never have to post again. Adam is way too busy to be posting on the forums, but in the future, if I do have to post, I'm definitely going to take a closer look at what these guys are sending me and saying, hey, we need help here, and take 20 minutes to really think about what I want to say. A lot of times, like you said, I post with my heart on my sleeve, and I need to stop doing that. So I just hope everyone knows it's never with ill intent. It's always just kind of defending our guys and defending what we built up that we care a lot about. So it's never personal. And a lot of times that I'll reach out to the people that kind of come down on, like a Dan Bauer, for example.
Yeah. You bring back memories, Adam. Memories of pages of my life in arguments.
Or even you,
Dan
Jerry.
Bauer would make a great politician. I've never known anyone who could argue that way.
Or you, Jerry. I mean, like people that I kind of have it out with. It's unintentional, and I think when I actually get the chance to talk to them, they realize that our motivation is kind of aligned, and we're on the same page, and it's just kind of we're defending our territories. And I apologize, for all past transgressions and possible future transgressions, but yes, I will definitely take a closer look at the posts that I put up on the forums.
Well, Adam, you're an intelligent, passionate person. I want to just reiterate to everyone, you just apologized. You didn't have to do that. I didn't ask you to do that. I know that on anything that I saw, I think all anybody could ask was an apology. And no one can fault a person who's been at a company from the ground up, who has made life choices because of the people that he works with. And in your case, deciding to stick it out, do what you do at Major League Gaming, has definitely impacted your career and your life. It seems for the better. And I just want to thank you and wish you all the best of luck. And I look forward to seeing you on the circuit next year.
Thank you, Jerry. And hey, I just want to say one thing in closing, and just for everyone to remember this. The next time you're going to go and you're going to complain on the forums or you're going to yell and you're going to stamp your foot, and we understand that we deserve it sometimes, but just remember how hard these guys work. We know we need to hear feedback. We want it. We definitely want feedback, but just be polite. These guys work so hard, from the Caseys to the Anakins to the Puckets to the guys behind the scenes that you don't necessarily know. The Joe Renauds, these guys all work so hard. Next time you're going to post something, like do the same thing that I'm saying that I'm going to do. Post something that we're actually going to view as constructive.
That's right. Be constructive. Like,
exactly.
Adam, can you please get me seats? Can I sit down at an event, Adam?
Exactly. And hey, we're working on that.
I know you are. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. I think, Adam, it is so important for the community to hear who you are as a person, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of what is obviously a very busy schedule that never ends. You're either scouting or talking to locations and doing things. So I want to thank you so much for being on our show.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in this Thanksgiving week special edition of the Losers Bracket. We'll be back with round 44 of the Losers Bracket next week, and we will have a full discussion over the interview you just heard. Hope that you guys enjoyed what you just listened to, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.